It was really cold, so I made a hot drink, and now I'm really hot and I want a cold drink and I don't have a cold drink. Okay, anyway, let's go. Hello! So, welcome back to another video that I am doing over the course of Pride Month, where I am talking exclusively about LGBTQ plus literature and characters and things, because that's what we need. Today, I thought it would be kind of cool to talk about some books that I really have enjoyed or am currently reading and enjoying that are historical LGBTQ plus books. So not historical as in the sense of like they came out ages ago, books set in the past. And there's not that many, to be fair. I've got 5, which is not a lot, but I didn't want to talk about books I hadn't read before. I want to talk about books I have read and that I know and that I want to talk about and promote, because there's, you know, I don't want to talk about things I don't know. I'll do that in my like what I want to read video. That was really long-winded. Basically, these books are historical. They're set in the past. They are not set now. They are set in different times. Okay, so the first 2 of these are actually on my Kindle. The Rebellion of Miss Lucy Ann Lobdell. Can you see it? I'll put it up here. And this is one which I actually discovered recently, and it sounded really cool when I found out about it, so I just bought it on my Kindle immediately. And this story is actually based on someone that actually existed in the 1800s, and the start of the book has a quote from Lucy Ann Lobdell. The name is the same, and this is her writing in 1855. I intend to write a book in which I shall give a full account of my adventures whilst I adopted male attire. And in 2013, the author of the book, of this particular book, William Clabber, said, "This memoir is fiction, an amalgam of real and imagined events and real and imagined characters. In most cases where the events of Lucy's life are reliably known, the plot and personage of the memoir conform. Where gaps occurred, I invented. Where accounts conflicted, I made a choice. The attempt was not to produce a literal history of Lucy Ann Lobdell, but rather to explore within the framework of her story a more shaded, uncertain and interior landscape terrain that could not be travelled without first being conjured." So it's like based on things. It's based on like stuff that actually happened. It's based on an actual person who did some of these things. And I'm gonna look more, once I finish this book, I'm gonna look more into the actual Lucy Ann Lobdell to read more about her. So this book is set in upstate New York in the 1800s, and it focuses on, as we have established, Lucy Ann Lobdell, who lives in a world where women do not dress how they want. Women do not earn the same amount of money as men. Women do not have the same standing in society as men. Women are not allowed to love other women, and women they don't have guns. They don't do the things that men do. They don't do the men things because they are women and therefore lesser than men. And Lucy is like, well, you know what? Fuck that shit. I'm not having it. So that's essentially the story. I am a couple of chapters in, and it's kind of her exploration of that, everything she does for that, what goes into trying to kind of have that and build that, and she's very much ahead of the time that she was in. I'm loving it so far, and I'm not that far into it, but I'm loving it so far. I really like, I can't believe I'd never heard of it until recently because it's so great, and I really am looking forward to reading most of it. Like, I just love everything like so far that's been in this book, like the writing, Lucy's character. It's insane when you think about how women still are treated not the best in society because people are shitty, but like how things have changed because of how women, like, they literally had nothing. They were like considered to like have no like standing in society at all. So like she's facing a lot of scorn, a lot of judgment. She's exploring a sexual identity which doesn't really have much of a voice yet or much of a basis yet because it's just not done. It was just not a thing. And yeah, so it's a fictionalized memoir, and it's really good so far. I think it's great what I've already read of it, and I can't wait to read more, and I would definitely recommend it. Okay, so the second book I have on my Kindle is The Lies We Tell Ourselves by Robin Talley. Robin Talley wrote Our Own Private Universe, which is a book I will be talking about in a future video this month. I read it last year and thought it was great, and I'd heard loads of good things about Lies We Tell Ourselves and have wanted to read it for ages. This book is set in 1959, set in a time where lots of things were treated very differently, and it's set in Virginia, and it focuses on, we have Sarah, who is the who is one of the first black students to ever be accepted and attend the previously all-white school, Jefferson High School. While in her old school she was an honours student, she is put into Jefferson High School and just put in remedial classes, which obviously she shouldn't be in. She is treated horribly every day. And then another girl that is focused on the story is Linda. She is the daughter of one of the town's most vocal voices against school integration. The phrase that she has had to live by her entire life is that different races should be kept separate but equal. They have to work together on a school project and get to know each other. It explores sort of that and being on very differing sides, and there being like, I mean, as a reader I'm very aware of what the correct side is there. I think there's only one, like people should not be kept separate or treated differently because of the colour of their skin. Like, I don't even want to know if anyone disagrees with that. Like, that's the winning side for me. Clearly that's how it should be. But also they have like exploring their true feelings for each other. Now, I have read the preview of this book and chapter 1 of this book, and I enjoyed chapter 1 of it. I don't know how it's going to tie in because I don't know if Linda's going to be horrible to Sarah, and if she is, I'll be unsure about the romance situation. I'm talking about this book and recommended this book kind of hesitantly because I haven't finished it. Like, sort of take this discussion as a pinch of salt, because I think if Linda's horrible to her, I'm not a fan of kind of, you're mean because you like someone. That's not a thing that I enjoy. If it's done well, then I think it'll be a really good exploration of kind of realising where you were wrong and realising kind of what you've been told your whole life isn't necessarily true, and that exploration of that. And I hope that's how it's done. I hope Robin Talley does it well. She did Our Own Private Universe really well. I thought that was done really well and was a really great exploration of sexuality. So I'm really hoping that this is the same. That's why I've mentioned it, because I think Robin Talley is brilliant with how she writes about sexuality and how she explores it and different types of sexuality. So I'm hoping that it's just as good. Then we have Things a Bright Girl Can Do by Sally Nichols, and this is a book that I got last year, and it is set in the time of the suffragette movement and women's votes and getting votes for some women, because at that time not all women did receive the vote, but getting votes for some women and kind of making that step forward that women are also allowed to vote. This book is in kind of different perspectives. We have Evelyn, her kind of experience. She's kind of like, why should I, like, I want to go to school, like I want to do these things, why am I not allowed to, and all that stuff. And she's starting to kind of campaign for women's rights and get involved with the protests and the campaigns and all that kind of thing. Like, she is expected to just kind of get married and go to tea parties, and she'll never be allowed to go with her brother to school, even though that's what she really wants to do, and even though she's very clever. Then we also have a different perspective, as the book kind of like alternates between it, of May, who is another advocate for women's rights. And then she meets Nell, who has grown up more in hardship, but they kind of hit it off and they fall in love, and they start to kind of dream of and want this world where they can be together completely fine and women can do whatever they want to do. I really like this book. I think this book is amazing. I thought it was a really great exploration of lots of varying things, and in a very interesting time, and kind of because the war is also looming as well. The Great War is kind of imminent, as well as exploring kind of all these things and like women's rights and this movement and how women weren't allowed to do things. Like, I can't imagine there being an election and me not being able to say anything about it and not give my opinion at all. That is ridiculous, and yet that was a thing not actually that long ago, and when all this happened, that was sort of for privileged white women, whereas like people of colour and also kind of less people with like less money and like working class and stuff weren't allowed to do that. That's even more recent, which is disgusting. But this explores that, and it explores that women should just be treated the same and shouldn't have to be told they can't do something and shouldn't be restricted because they are not lesser than men. So this book's fantastic, really good exploration of lots of different things, and I would definitely recommend it. Okay, so this next book I have spoken about before because it's one of my favourite books on the planet, and that is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. This book is set in England in the 1700s, and it follows our main protagonist Henry Montgomery, or Monty as he is known, who is bisexual, which, you know, That's what we need, lads. I mean, we need all representation, but we also need bisexual representation, positive bisexual representation, where Monty is very comfortable with the fact that he likes men and women, which is absolutely fine. Good bisexual representation, give it to me. So he is the gentleman, well, would be considered one. His dad has some money, his dad owns a company. Monty is expected to be proper and good and definitely not be interested in men, and definitely not be sleeping around with women also, but you know, like proper, and know how to run a company. He is set to go on his gentleman's tour, after which he is expected to come back and take over and help his dad to run the company. He's going on the tour with his best friend Percy, who he is in love with, and I love Percy. But Percy doesn't know this, but he ends up going on his tour with Percy and his little sister Felicity, who is my actual queen, and the next book is about her, and I just cannot wait. Percy is a person of colour as well, and there's lots of ways like you see the difference in how they're treated. This book is hilarious. It's so funny. It deals with race, it deals with sexuality, it deals with stereotypes, it deals with disabilities, and it deals with attitudes towards that. And whilst this is set in the 1700s, and yes, attitudes were significantly different to how they are now, there are definitely parallels to how people treat certain things. Please read this book. It's also hilarious whilst being really, really, really interesting. It's so well written and just dealt with incredibly well. So yes, Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, please read this book, you will not be disappointed. And finally we have Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Ellery Science. Now I was unsure if I was going to include this book because this book is set in the 80s. So yes, it is historical, but it's not like, it wasn't a long time ago. It was like my brother was born in the 80s, do you know what I mean? Like it's not. But then I guess lots of things have changed since the 80s, so we can roll with it. For those that don't know, or maybe new to this channel, I talk about this book all the bloody time because it is my most favourite book ever, like, on the planet. How, you know, 2 videos into this month of LGBT content and I've gone there. It took 2 videos. So this book is about 15-year-old Aristotle and Dante, who both live in El Paso in Texas in the 80s, and they meet one day at a swimming pool, and Ari can't swim, Dante can. Dante offers to teach him, and kind of they're very opposite people, but they hit it off. They have a bit of a laugh about their names because they're Aristotle and Dante, haha. And it's a very good exploration of friendship and family and kind of growing up and like exploring your sexuality, coming into kind of accepting that and accepting who you are. And it's done at completely different rates and in completely different ways. Kind of you see both of these boys exploring different things, but done in completely different ways, and kind of Ari has a completely different level of like what he wants to approach and kind of how he does it and kind of his comfortable levels with doing that stuff, whereas Dante is like really open and really kind of like wants to discuss everything. And it's this really, really interesting dynamic between these 2 boys, and just kind of, I think everyone can kind of relate to that growing up and kind of coming into yourself and that kind of thing. They're also both half Mexican, but they both kind of, again, they explore that in different ways, and they explore their heritage in different ways, but it's also really interesting to see that and really great to see that exploration. It's just a very, very, very good book, and it's written really well. It's written kind of in a really interesting way, actually. I want to do a full proper review of this because I did one years ago, but it's more sort of like, oh my god, look at this book, like, rather than properly discussing it, and I have so many more coherent proper views of it now. So I will do the one this month. It's just incredibly well done and really, really, really great. It was exploring so many good things, and it's my favourite book and I love it. So please also read this book because it's brilliant. I hope you liked this video. Sorry that there was only 5 books. I don't want to talk about books I haven't read unless I'm doing like a to be read or what I want to read or upcoming releases or something, because if I'm recommending a book I want to know that I have at least some kind of knowledge and basis into it. Even if I've only read a couple of chapters, I want to kind of be able to start you guys with that. So that's why there's only 5, because they're the only ones I've read. I'd love to know more recommendations because I would love more historical LGBTQ+ novels. Please let me know. They don't have to be YA, but I would love to hear some more. And obviously if you leave them in the comments, then other people that are also in the comments can see your recommendations as well. So I'd love for more of them. I'd love for you to let me know down below. Have you read any of these? Are you planning on reading any of these? What did you think of these? Let's discuss. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you're doing really, really well, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!